Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great session today. We're super excited to have you here. We have Dr. Rebecca Reynolds with us, and she has educated teaching staff all over the world in video, online formats, and in person, traveling to places such as Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia, and many others. In her travels, she has been asked repeatedly how to help when children do not behave in the classroom. Behavior begins with each child's social emotional development. We're super excited to have Dr. Reynolds here. She is a wealth of information. I also want to remind you very quickly of two disclaimers. The first disclaimer just states that a degree from UAGC does not lead to immediate teacher licensure. So if you do graduate from UAGC, you will need to make sure that you go back to your individual state and get licensed and certified so that you can teach in an online or in a classroom. And then the second disclaimer is that UAGC does not warrant anything that is shared in this session. So Dr. Reynolds, the floor is yours, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Hello, everyone. As Dr. Shipley has said, I'm Dr. Rebecca Reynolds. Most of my students know me as Dr. Rebecca. Having raised 7 children of my own, classroom teaching for over 25 years, and teacher training since 1997 internationally, as was shared already. I have been asked many times in my travels, repeatedly, how to help when children do not behave in the classroom. So we are about to dive into the what, the why, the where, the who, and the when, all with remembering that behavior begins with each child's social emotional development. How will be addressed to some degree in every category. This can be used to guide you in your own home or classroom. Let's start with the what. After all, knowing how to define social emotional development is crucial to understanding how to apply social emotional development in your home or classroom. Let's move this around. There we go. Social development advances in stages, and it relies heavily on communication with other people, teaching the ability to discern and apply communication skills in give and take formats. Social development thrives with social bonds are created, giving children experiences with socialization. Emotional development also advances in stages and is the give and pull of inner thoughts, many times in reaction to communications and social interaction. Emotional development includes a child's self-awareness, social awareness, emotional regulation, responsible decision-making, and relationship building. That relationship building brings us full circle back to social development, also giving direction on how they influence each other. So, stages of the what. Erickson outlines what is known as a psychosocial development crisis that develops with internal conflict. Here are the first 3 stages. Stage 1 begins with birth and runs its course until about 18 months of age or so. In stage 1, children are learning the basics of trust. If the adults in the lives provide for basic needs such as safety, food, clothes, nurturing, etc., the basis of trust can be learned. This allows children to begin the second stage, trusting those involved in their lives. In stage 2, the internal struggle is autonomy versus shame and doubt. In this stage, about 18 months roughly, until about 3 years of age, the children are toilet training, showing what their personal interests include. Now, this could be the clothes they like to wear, this could be the food they like to eat, their favorite colors, etc. If the children learn trust through the first stage of development, they will more than likely succeed in finding autonomy given the opportunity. It is important for young children to begin developing a sense of personal independence. This is a time to offer reassurance. Have faith in our children's abilities. Faith in each child is a crucial element to the development of the sense of autonomy and confidence. By finding independence and confidence, moving into the next stage of initiative versus guilt is a better chance with developing into initiative. In stage 3, initiative versus guilt, at about the age of 3 through 5, children are learning personal purpose. If they are allowed to explore their environment and guided correctly when they make mistakes and make friends, this is a great time to begin directing their choices with questions that make them think about each situation before they act. So now we're on to the why. Let's talk about it. Control of self decreases the risk for disruptive behavior disorders throughout the lifespan. What is not stated enough is that when children are not taught in the younger years how to control themselves, they are not only impacted by learned behaviors being reinforced, but their brain development is also impacted. Our brain development is quite impressive when we're young. The younger we are, the faster our brain develops. As our brain physically changes with each new learned behavior and behavior reinforcement, children can develop disruptive behavior disorders if the children are not consciously taught social emotional skills, like a sense of belonging and identity. If not carefully thought about and taught, brain development can have negative consequences. Another thing to notice is that SEL, social emotional learning, does impact a child's relationships throughout their lifespan. If children are not taught to control their temper, for example, they may grow up using their temper to get what they want. This can lead to abusive behaviors later on in life, broken laws, and many others being hurt because they didn't learn self-control. Okay, so where do us adults teach social emotional development to the children in our lives? An interesting question for social emotional development. Where should we help children learn this? Well, we need to teach them controlling their own emotions and how to socialize, right? But where? Well, this should be taught everywhere. Simply by working on our own social emotional development, we can set a good example. After all, the children look to us adults in their lives for the example of how to behave. Some examples of classroom social emotional learning can include greeting the children warmly as they enter your classroom, using polite manners when speaking to children and other adults, giving children the chance to explain themselves with good listening skills, apologizing to children when the adults make a mistake, explaining to children how you feel and why you feel it. Work at keeping your stress from home out of the classroom. Some examples of social learning and family living can include greeting them warmly in the morning when they wake up and when they arrive home from school. Use polite manners as much as possible. Good listening can be a tool to develop a lasting, loving relationship. Apologize when you make a mistake. Explain reasons why you have your feelings. Encourage children to ask about how you feel and answer them honestly. Okay, so on to the who. Who should teach social emotional skill? Well, the adage, "It takes a village," is not just a book written by Hillary Clinton. "It takes a village" is an old African saying that has been applied to the entire community. How we demonstrate things like emotional control will give children a great start. There are so many ways that being part of a community can help our children with their own social emotional development. For example, as a community member, you can be polite, smile more, Think of others' well-being before your own. This can lead to more contentment, happiness, and ability to control one's own emotions. The reason of this being taught at such a young age is that later in life, children taught this will have more success and they'll be in trouble less often. Our current systems justify paying money and attention to things like the jail system. Rather than developing mentally healthy children, they will grow into responsible and well-adjusted adults. There, of course, is nothing like spending resources on fixing an issue before it's too late. This professor believes that in providing resources to prevent issues, we need to this professor believes, I believe, in providing the resources before there are issues. By everyone spending money, time, resources onto social emotional learning, the less we need to be concerned with a mental health crisis. So together as parents, educators, and community, we need to be aware of and demonstrate emotional control and social responsibility to set a good example for the young ones still learning. So, the when. When should we teach the smallest of our children about social emotional development? There is only one word for this, and that word is always. By adults using polite language, we are giving an example of how to use words correctly. By being aware of our own behavior in and out of children's line of sight, we can teach by example. By being aware that children may be able to hear you when you can't see them, and by guiding the children when they struggle with their own emotions or social interactions. Okay, so back to the title. What trouble? We define social emotional development, the how, the what, the why, the who, and the when. So why do we need to know about troubles with social emotional development? The first thing that comes to mind that can be trouble is the temperament or the mood of children. I've seen adults give up on children because their temperament was no good. But really, what does temperament tell us? A child's temperament or mood could tell us that children are experiencing social emotional interruptions like stress, developmental disorders, diagnosed and undiagnosed. They could be confused from a divorce at home. Perhaps they are experiencing bullying on the play yard or at home. Now, of course, temperament and mood can be thought of as a natural occurrence as a personality that is impacted by SEL interruptions. Temperament, as described by Malik and Marawa, as having three categories. The first one is easy and flexible. This temperament category includes children who are friendly and easygoing, comply with routines such as sleep and meal times. They adapt to changes well, and they have a calm disposition. Number two, active or feisty. Children who are fussy, do not follow routines, have irregular feeding and sleeping schedules, or are apprehensive in a new environment with new people, have intense reactions, and get easily upset. Or we have three, slow to warm up or cautious children. These children may be less agitated or active, have a shy disposition to a new situation and new people. They may withdraw or have a negative reaction. They become more comfortable and warm up with repeated exposure to a new environment or person. Whatever a child's temperament or mood, there is always a reason for behaviors, even when we can't identify the reason immediately. Sometimes it takes a little bit of observation and investigation to figure it out, but the time spent is well worth it. Now, not very long ago, we didn't pay much attention to social emotional development. In fact, when I was 11 years old, I had an interesting conversation with my Aunt Susie. I had an issue with headaches, and I told her that my theory for this was stress. She quickly corrected me, saying that children don't experience stress. Now, I adored my Aunt Susie, But something in me knew this information was wrong. I walked away knowing that I had to keep searching for an answer. I still believe then, and as I do now, that children do not only experience stress, but stress can interrupt social emotional development. In fact, it can interrupt brain development. So we can conclude that there are influences that involve the what, the why, where, who, and when. And remember that behavior begins with each child's social emotional development. We can now define social emotional development as emotional development that includes self-awareness, social awareness, emotional regulation, responsible decision making, with an overlap of relationship building that brings us full circle back to social development. The trouble? Well, the trouble begins when children are not taught how to establish emotionally sound relationships when they are very young. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reynolds. I know this is going to help a lot of people. SEL learning is so important in schools right now, and we have to make sure that we have the knowledge in our toolkit to be able to implement these things into our classrooms. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much.